Hello everyone. Today we are doing an English grammar lesson and the subject is zero conditionals. Okay, so zero conditionals, sometimes we call it as type zero conditionals. Actually, there are four types of conditional sentences, as you can see here, four types of conditional sentences. Sometimes we call the conditional sentences as if sentences. Okay, we call it as if sentences. Why is that? Because the conditional sentence has two parts, okay? The first part is the if conditional, and then if clause, and another part is the main clause. So maybe at this stage you don't know what is if clause or what is main clause, okay? So let me explain to you what a clause is. A clause has got a subject, a verb, or sometimes even an object. Okay, for example, let me show you an example and then you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's look at this example. Use a highlighter. If I am late for school, my teacher gets angry. Okay, so whenever we start if, the if clause has got subject, verb, and object, right? Okay, sometimes object is optional. Okay, so what is the subject here? The if clause. Whenever the if, this word if starts first, then it's called if clause. Okay, so it's very easy. And then I'll let you know what is the main clause for, okay, in the next slide. But you need to know if clause has got subject and a verb and sometimes an object. Okay, so what is the subject in this if clause? So the subject here is I. What about the verb am? Okay, I am what? What is the object? I am late for school. This is the object, okay, in this if clause. Okay, what about the main clause? Main clause, because clause has got a subject, right? So what is the subject in this clause? The subject in this clause is my teacher. So this is the subject, my teacher. What is the verb? What does your teacher do? He or she gets. This is the action your teacher does. Okay, so my teacher gets what? Angry. Okay, so the whole sentence is if I am late for school, comma, my teacher gets angry. So we call this as conditional sentence. Whenever you see the if clause, okay, plus a main clause, we call it as conditional sentence. Okay, so and basically you need to learn. There are two parts in a conditional sentence: if clause and a main clause. Okay, and a clause has got a subject and a verb. All right. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Okay, um, when we talk about type 0, okay, when do we use type 0? When we talk about truth or facts. Okay, example, if we heat butter, it melts. Okay, so the butter always melts. Can you see the butter? It always melts. Okay, when we heat it. Okay, and it is a fact. So if it is a fact or if it is a truth, then we use type 0. Okay, so if we heat butter, if this condition, okay, if we heat it, okay, then the result is it melts. Okay, the result is it melts. All right. Okay, so in this case, we use type 0. Okay, so when do we use it? We use type 0 when we talk about facts or the truth. Okay, things that are true or the condition always has the same result. If we heat butter, it melts. It's always true. It's a fact. Okay, so we use type 0. Notice there is let me use a pointer here. Can you see it melts? Okay, as you can see that for type 0, the tenses is present tense. Okay, so if we heat butter, it melts. Whenever you see present tense, he, she, it, okay, here the subject, the verb melt, it needs to we need to put s or es, okay, at the end of the verb. So it depends on the verb, okay. If it is normal verb, if it is present tense, we just need to put s, okay. But sometimes if the verb ends with o, ends with s or sh, okay, so we need to add es at the end of the main verb, okay. So this is something that you need to pay attention when you use present tense. He, she, it, the main verb need to add s or es, okay. What about other pronouns like we, they, any other pronouns except these three? Then it's normal. We just put the normal verb, okay. So you only remember he, she, it, okay. These three singular pronoun, the verb, okay, needs to add an s or es at the end of the verb. So here is the example, okay. All right, now let's move on to the next slide. Yeah, this is the condition and this is the result. Let's move on to the next slide. As I have told you that type 0, okay, for the tenses, okay, let's give you an example. If we hit butter, it melts, okay. So why do we use present tense? Okay, in type 0, we use present tense for the if clause, and we use present tense for the main clause, okay. Why do we use present tense? Because present tense describes facts, okay, and type 0 talks about facts, okay. So that's why we use present tense in both the clauses, okay. So if clause is the condition, and then the main clause is the result, okay. So what is the condition? If we hit butter. What about the result? What happened? What is the result? Then the butter melts, okay. So this is the result. Another example, if I miss the bus, okay, if that means if I cannot catch the bus in the morning when I go to school, I am late for school, okay. This is true. If you miss the bus, okay, you can't, that means you can't catch the bus on time, you miss it, then you are late for school for sure, okay. So this is truth. And it is a fact. You are describing a fact. Then we need to use type 0. So for type 0, the if clause, we use present tense, and then the main clause. So if this happened, the condition, if I miss the bus, this is the condition. What about the result? The result is I am late for school, okay. So this is the result. Notice that when the if clause is put in the beginning of the sentence, we need to add a comma, okay, at the end of the if clause. So this is how we do it. If we hit butter, comma, it melts, okay. If I miss the bus, comma, I am late for school. Okay, do we always use the if clause in the beginning? No, not necessarily. We can change the order, okay. So for example, we can change the order. If this one, or can I use this? The if, you can use it this way, okay. So we can actually, this is the main clause. This is the main clause. It melts, okay. We can put the main clause in the beginning of the sentence, okay. It, you need to change it to uppercase, okay, capital letter. It melts, okay, if we hit butter, okay. We can change the order of the two clauses. It's okay, but we don't need to add comma here if the if is put in the middle, or if the if clause is put in the second place, okay. So that's how we do it. If we want to put the main clause in the beginning of the if clause, then there will be no comma. You just need a full stop at the end of the sentence, like every other sentence that you write. Just put a full stop at the end of the sentence, and that is all, okay. So what about for this one? If I miss the bus, comma, I am late for school. So if I want to put this main clause in the beginning of the sentence, it will become I am late for school if I miss the bus, full stop. Okay, so that means here, this one. So if I'm late for school here, I am late for school here if I miss the bus, full stop. Okay, so this is how you can write a conditional sentence. Okay, so you can change the order for the if clause and the main clause here. Okay, so these are the things you need to remember. But if you put the if clause in the beginning, make sure you put a comma, okay, at the end of the if clause. All right. So basically, that is the end of today's lesson. So I hope you've learned how to use type 0, okay? And you need to pay attention to the tenses. Both are present tense, okay? He, she, it, you need the main verb, you need to add s or es, okay? So this is something that you have to remember, okay? So I hope you enjoy this lesson. I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.